Next to the nominations of individuals to serve on the courts of our land, which are often lifetime appointments, this appointment of the head of the FBI is one of the most serious that the Senate Judiciary Committee should consider. We decided 50 years ago to depoliticize the FBI by giving 10-year tenures to those who headed up the FBI to transcend any single administration or any single president. So that's one of the most important things that distinguishes this nomination from others. Secondly, we have an individual in Kash Patel who has published a book which in detail describes his view of politics in America. It is a book that is filled with grievances, filled with conspiracy theories, and filled with information of how he sided with the January 6 rioters against the police in this very Capitol complex. And so when he came to testify before the committee, we had some questions that he was asked and he needed to answer about his conduct. And we went through them, particularly on the element of the J6 choir. I know this sounds like a curious thing to spend any time on, but it's a reflection on his priorities and the fact that he's asking to head up the most important single law enforcement agency in the United States at a time when he sided with the so-called political prisoners of January 6th instead of the brave men and women who risked their lives to protect us here in the Capitol complex. He created this musical undertaking and was proudly proclaiming it to Steve Bannon, how the hard work he went to master and digitize it and create a musical work that can be played at the Trump rallies. When we asked him about him in the committee, he couldn't remember any part of it, didn't know who the singers were, wasn't sure what I was talking about. That kind of evasion betrays the fact that he sided with the prisoners when he should have sided with the police. And that, I think, is something that's going to haunt him as he pursues this position with the FBI. I then asked him about a fellow named Stu Peters. I don't know Mr. Peters, but he supposedly is a neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic person, a political theorist who has some sort of a podcast. Well, it turned out that Mr. Patel couldn't remember Stu Peters. Stu Peters, who would he be? Well, he appeared on his podcast 8 different occasions. 8 different occasions, couldn't remember him when I asked about him. You know, I have to question whether or not this man is really ready to take over this job and to guide these men and women who dedicate their lives to the safety of the United States. Something has happened since his testimony, of course, and that is the beginning of the Trump administration and their approach to the Department of Justice. Whether it's the Department of Justice or the FBI, they are now in the process of trying to rewrite history. They want January 6th to turn out to be a much different event, a whitewashed event in history, as opposed to the terrible embarrassment and disgrace that it was that day. And so they're going through the personnel of those 2 departments, Department of Justice and the FBI, and asking which individuals were involved in the January 6th case, as well as other prosecutions that might have involved the president. Sadly, we think this is a portent of what's to come, where these people will be punished or even dismissed because of their involvement. That is an outrage, that these men and women who work for the Department of Justice being asked to be part of one of the largest criminal prosecutions in our history now would lose their jobs over it or somehow be stigmatized is just plain wrong. But it's an indication of what has happened with this Trump administration kicking off their idea of justice.